if you are afraid to hire good people, if you're afraid to kind of invest in infrastructure, then that's your limit, right? There's only so much you can do. You want to be careful about it. You don't want to scale too fast, but you need to scale your back end as well. You need to scale your operation. You need to scale your people. You definitely need to scale your supply chain. So I think that is the biggest thing that's holding people back, of course, after they get the marketing right.
You're listening to EcommOps, a Debutify podcast, your resource for one-of-a-kind insights into the world of e-commerce and business in the modern age. This is Joseph. I'll be presenting a wealth of industry knowledge from interviews with successful business people and our own state-of-the-art research. Your time is valuable, so let's go. Dayu Yang, it is good to have you here in EcommOps. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Very good. Very good to speak with you, Joseph. I'm excited to share some knowledge and thoughts.
And I'm happy to have the opportunity to acquire as much of that as I can get my hands on for this next hour. But before I do, I tend to not want to start with a fluffy question, but I'm going to start with a fluffy question specifically because it's geographical based. My partner and I, we often talk about going into the States, and Miami, Florida is like up there as one of like the places that we find appealing. And you told me before we started recording that that's where you are right now. Is that your place of permanent residence, or like? It's like, what drives you to stay there? Are you just in there temporarily?
Yeah, my wife is a professor at the University of Miami. So she needs to be here. I can be anywhere in the world. I actually prefer to be in China where my business is. But because of COVID right now, I haven't been able to get back. I'm a US citizen now. It's one of the first times in recent history having a US passport is not a good thing, actually. And I haven't been on a plane for, I was like on a plane recently. I got vaccinated, but usually I'm traveling around the world, actually, meeting clients, being in China, running my operations. But home is where my wife is. So, I have an apartment in Miami. So this is home for now.
Well, I might just come back to that, because I think there's some keen insights there, and just handling the situation that was presented to you by COVID. But we'll see if we can get back to that. So,
of course.
The actual true opening question is for you to tell us what you do and what you're up to these days, which you kind of alluded to, but let's move on from there.
So I'm the founder and CEO of EcommOps. We specialize as a premium supply chain sourcing and fulfillment service directly out of China. So primarily we serve we don't really do dropshipping anymore in the traditional model, but we really serve folks who were previously dropshippers who saw a lot of success and are really kind of tired of working with stuff like AliExpress or, kind of the typical dropshipping agents. And, we really built up this whole operations to help them scale to the next level, help them figure out, at least on the supply chain side, how can the supply chain keep up with their marketing, keep up with their great stuff, and scale from six figures to 7 figures to 8 figures, and also build that into a more sustainable store, more sustainable brand, and kind of get out of the grind of just constantly testing new products, generic products, and just kind of the ups and downs of the classic dropshipping career, which I think is, there is still a lot there, but I definitely think that there's a lot of opportunities for the market to mature, for strategies to mature, both on the front end side and also the back end side. And this is where we think that, dropshipping has been an amazing industry in the last couple of years, e-commerce in general. And now it's just starting to really just get more advanced, especially on the marketing front end. And, really we're kind of just leading up the back end of that. Okay. Like, you want to scale hard, you want to build a legitimate business. Well, we're here for you. And we do everything from factory management, sourcing, direct fulfillment from China around the world with fast shipping speeds, and even stuff like, to really get to the next level, help you customize products, like actually customize them, not just put a logo on it, like actually customize the product itself. We do customized full products as well, and we work directly with the factory to make sure that your supply chain is as smooth as possible.
Well, that's terrific, and it raises some observations that I've accumulated over the course of these many conversations that I've been fortunate enough to have. And before I share those observations, I guess what I'd like to know, for terminology's sake, is let's just say I'm in the position where I can reach out to EcommOps and have it be able to work with the company. in my mind, I would still see it as drop shipping because it still seems to follow some of the same rules or some of the same logic, which is I'm still not putting the boxes in my apartment or in the warehouse, perhaps. There is still a back end or a fulfillment company such as yourself, which is handling that. So that is, I think, one of the core rules that I identify as drop shipping. So when I see and my observations is when I see that it's the stereotype of drop shipping is what's dissipated, and probably for the best, really, because people would just set up these stores, drop ship a bunch of products. Maybe they arrived, maybe they didn't. Maybe they arrived broken. Maybe they exploded on contact. And I'm happy to see that. What you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, but what I'm seeing is the drop shipping part of e-commerce is now being elevated to the same expectations of quality that really any business worth its weight has to abide by: customer service, quality, dependency, and some sort of feeling that the company is working towards a greater purpose. So I'll go back to the first question, which is, how would you define, I guess, the entry level for when people are working with you if they don't feel it should be called dropshipping anymore?
Yeah, so maybe we'll start with what at least I believe traditional dropshipping is, technically, is you don't hold any stock, obviously. You don't have any risk, and you really have no control of the supply chain at all. The most pure model is something like dropshipping from AliExpress. AliExpress is basically China's Amazon. I mean, AliExpress is not a drop shipping company, right? It's like China's Amazon. And what people do is that when you start out, and AliExpress, by the way, is a great place to start out, right? You find some product you want to sell. It's going to be cheaper than we can sell it from. We can sell it for, and you start marketing it, and basically you make money on the margin. You just order products one by one, or use some kind of tool like DSers or below, for example, and order it in bulk. However, just like ordering from Amazon, the seller on AliExpress, like, he or she is not preparing for thousands of units of products, just to support you. Maybe they do, but it's not just for you, right? Like they are just standard sellers, right? So because of that, you really have no transparency into what you're actually getting. You have no transparency in their stock levels. The stock levels are all fake, by the way. They say they have 999. It's all fake. But there's a lot of benefits to that. Like beginners, I really recommend they start from AliExpress because there's no risk. You can just find a product idea, find it on AliExpress, hook it up to your store, build a store in like a day, and just start selling, right? And when you sell low volume, like a couple orders per day, just to test your Facebook ads, that's totally fine. I mean, it's just like someone just buying a bunch of stuff on Amazon, right? Like that totally works, right? However, if you really want to scale, like once you scale up to like 50, 500, orders per day, like AliExpress, like that seller doesn't even know that you're preparing to scale up, right? So they're not preparing it for you. Not to mention you have no control over the branding, or very little control over the branding, very little control over the product quality. Now, fast forward to working with someone like us. We kind of take, kind of just one additional step where, when you think about, when you're mentioning, okay, look, obviously you don't have goods in your garage, for example, sending out, right? But, what if you're using like a US based fulfillment center, like ShipBob, for example? What if you order goods from the factory, put it on a container ship, arrives in the US, and use a fulfillment center to fulfill your products? That's obviously not drop shipping anymore. And the way that we operate is that basically it's that same model, except we fulfill directly from China. So when we work with clients that, okay, let's figure out what product you're selling, and you're selling well already, we're going to work directly with the factory. All right, we're going to work directly with the factory. We're going to find the best version possible, at a decent price of this. And depending on your order volume, like if you want smooth fulfillment, you need inventory, right? We're going to order like 500 or 1,000 of it so that your fulfillment just happens right away, and it's predictable as well. And the great thing is that something that has to go on a boat to LA and then go to your fulfillment warehouse, that's going to take weeks and sometimes months to actually get there. Whereas from the factory to our warehouse, it's going to take like anywhere between 24 hours to maybe a couple days, maybe 5 days, right? So And then, China shipping right now, like it can be as fast as like, 5 to 7 days, the UK and US. And it's highly efficient and it's pretty cost effective, especially if you compare the freight costs on the other side. This means that you get all of the benefits and the flexibility of the supply chain elements of drop shipping. However, this is where you start getting more control in the process. And this is where, we're a little bit different from other agents or suppliers who kind of have this model as well, is because, when I started this, one of the values that I really believed in was that you as a store owner, you want to partner in the back end. In the traditional, like let's say retail model, right? You're going to probably have like a VP of supply chain or something like that, right? You're going to have a whole team handling your supply chain. Obviously, you don't really need that anymore. However, your supply chain shouldn't just be a transactional service, right? Like we're not a transaction to our clients. We're true partners with them. And we discuss with them, okay, how much inventory do you need? Is there any kind of issues you have with the products? We're going to work directly with the factory to improve it. Actually, many times, even for generic products, because of the cycle of improvement, we often end up with the best even generic product on the market because we have so much volume with the factory and like we're able to actually get them to improve the product and many times for free as well. And so, this is kind of where we start to transcend the traditional drop shipping model, but we have still a lot of the important benefits of much shorter lead times, much more flexibility, and just much less risk in terms of holding inventory, right? Because if you're holding inventory in the US, you might need like 10,000 units to support like your volume. Whereas in China, we just order like, 500 units at a time. And then like, okay, it runs out. Well, it's going to take 3 more days to get here anyway. So just keep ordering. So you get all that flexibility without a lot of that risk.
But I think in order for someone to be, because I would have to ask you, okay, I need you to order 500 units of this product. So in order to have that degree of certainty that those 500 units are going to move, the business has to have made it to a certain level where there is activity, sales are coming in consistently. So one thing I made sure to check from the YouTube videos is the degree of transparency, and you protect your clients' interests. So it's up to you to how detailed you can get with the answer to this question. But are there case studies or instances to your recollection of the typical process of, or like what state a business is in when it's mature enough to be able to work with you?
Yeah. So generally we require a minimum of 50 orders per day, of steady volume on a certain product because anything, or, we're a little bit flexible, 30, 40 is close enough, right? But the entire idea is that your business is stable enough. You might have used AliExpress at first or some smaller agent or something like CJ Dropshipping, for example, but your business is at a stable state to take it to the next level. That's the point where clients work with us. That is what we're specifically good for. Because I think that before you get that consistency, you probably should be always testing. You should be testing new products. And this is kind of where I go back to the benefits of using something like AliExpress, because you get all that flexibility, right? Like you can just test products like that. Doesn't work out, you kill it. But you find you start to hit a winner, then you work with someone like us. And you did kind of bring up a question about, okay, like, maybe our clients might be thinking about, okay, like, ordering 500 at a time. So this is kind of where, depending on what the client really wants to control or wants us to control, we also have, specific, ways that we project inventory needs. This is kind of where it's helpful, obviously, have steady volume, right? So if you have like 50 orders per day and your lead time is going to be like 3 days to our warehouse, then maybe we get like 5 days worth of inventory at a time, right? So it's like, it's not getting too much. We have a little bit buffer just in case you scale up. And then this is also where our partnership and communications with our clients is really important. One of the things that tends to happen, we don't communicate with your supply chain, is that you start scaling up and it's super, super exciting, right? And we were preparing for 50 orders per day and you scale up to 1,000 per day. It's happened before multiple times, by the way. You do the math, right? Your inventory is out and then you're kind of back at square one and you have supply chain disruptions as well. So, one of the things that not only us and actually, even if you work with another supplier, I highly suggest that you communicate with them. feed them information. We can only see your orders after they come in. We don't know what's going on in your plans, in your mind. If you're ready to scale, tell your supplier. You want to double your ad spend, maybe you want to double your inventory, right? Tell your supplier and work with them to just start getting that ready and on the way, so that you're not facing sometimes week-long disruptions simply because there's no more stock.
I don't expect it happens very often, but has there been situations where both parties were surprised at how things are suddenly surging? Like this product just happens to go viral, then all of a sudden they sending you a 3 a.m. panic text. It's like, I got good news and I got bad news, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, you know what? Yes, all the time. By the way, yeah,
I do find that surprising because it's just, it seems like such a part of the pipe dream aspect of it, which is one of those myths we want to dispel, is the idea that, oh yeah, all of a sudden you're just going to get flooded with all these orders. And it seems like, to me, it didn't seem like it's going to happen that often, but sorry to cut you off.
Oh no, it happens all the time. I mean, especially doing something like Q4, for example, like things tend to blow up, but not even just in Q4. Sometimes things just blow up. When someone finds a winning product, right? And honestly, even if someone else is selling it already, right? If they find a really amazing marketing angle, that's one of the great things about something like Facebook ads or something like affiliate marketing, for example, is that if it's scalable, you could just blow it to the moon. Like, I mean, there's no stopping, right? I mean, we all know that the more marketing spend you push, your ROAS tends to go down, right? It's kind of the equation. But the thing is, like, especially if someone's experienced and you see the numbers and you have so much room, just really scale it up. But yes, I mean, I've had situations where a client, he'll work with us. Okay, we're going to plan for like 200 orders per day. Let's get it ready. And but it could get bigger, to be prepared. So like we'll have like kind of the factory already kind of just being mentally prepared. And the next day it's like, hey, Dayu, like we sold like 4,000 units yesterday. So like, can we get like more factories? Can we just get that ramped up right now? So yes, it does happen. It doesn't happen all the time, obviously, but I will say it is not a pipe dream. I mean, we've seen like, millionaires getting made over like a couple of weeks period where something is just extremely hot. And this is also something that, especially if you want to take advantage of your experience, if you want to take advantage of, what that hype is going to be, like of the success, then, you just scale way up. And that's exactly why you need to work with someone who actually understands supply chain, right? Because, in that one case, for example, where all of a sudden scaled up to like 4,000 units per day, we reserved a factory. Their capacity was 2,000 units per day, right? So like, literally the factory's capacity, like they couldn't make more than, factories have physical constraints. They have physical people they have to deal with. So this is where we actually scrambled and we got like 2 more factories. I mean, at some point we had like 100 something factory workers across like 2.5 factories, all just working on this client product. This is something that obviously AliExpress is not going to be able to handle. And, I would honestly say most suppliers, most agents, they just don't know how to handle that. One secret I'm going to tell you guys is that the vast majority of suppliers out there, they don't even talk to factories really. Like they order from Alibaba or like the Chinese version of Alibaba. It's like, it's almost like dropshipping a dropshipper sometimes. It's like, they order the units like just online. They don't even talk to them. They don't really kind of plan with them. That is, obviously not the right way to do things if you really want that steady supply chain in terms of like stock, in terms of product quality as well.
Yeah, as you're describing the relationship of, so there's AliExpress and then there's Alibaba, and then I should know this because I looked into it. My gut's telling me it's Taobao, but I'm not. It just reminded me of those Russian nesting dolls where each one there's like a smaller doll on the inside of it. Okay, so as you're describing, the reality of how this happens. Okay, the opposite question came to mind, and I'm asking it for the fun of it, which is, has the opposite happened where somebody calls you up, texts you up, says be ready, a storm's coming, and then it turns out nothing really happens. And the reason why I asked that is because I'm wondering if there was any lesson learned where they realized maybe their ad wasn't quite targeted or wasn't quite scaled effectively. Maybe they mismanaged their budget, but there is something identifiable where they could actually extract some information and figure out what went wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think that, we work with a lot of the most experienced clients in the industry. And I will tell you that so scaling up to huge numbers is definitely not a pipe dream. However, even the most experienced people in the industry are not going to have 100% hit rate. They can feel 100% confident about something. And yes, there have been multiple situations, many situations, probably countless situations where there is a lot of confidence in a product. Let's get it ready. And well, actually, this kind of speaks to also like one of the benefits of still being able to fulfill from China as well, right? Because traditionally, if you really want to take a big bet, you got to wait like a month for it to actually arrive. And then you got to order like 5,000 units to sell
Right.
5,000 units, right?
Yeah,
So,
there's a boat involved.
exactly, exactly. So for what we do is that, hey, look, your lead time is like 3 days anyways. We got a factory kind of standing by, right? Um, just get started and then like as soon as you see the results, then we can ramp up. Now, so here's a lesson in terms of the advertising side, right? I think that um, especially like as you get more experience in marketing, you're gonna start to get a really good feeling for if something works or not very very early on, right? You run ads for a day and like your ROAS is just like nothing, right? Top of the funnel stats look terrible, like you just kill it, right? And yeah, so like in terms of any kind of pattern that I see like with that happening, not really, because like in some ways everything is kind of a bet. It's not gambling, but everything has like a chance of success. I would say that even our most successful clients, they're looking at maybe like a 50% success rate, but just for kind of something that's not losing money, for like kind of like break even, but something that becomes a huge, massive winner, like even the most successful folks, maybe 20, 30% or so, right? And I think the lesson learned here is that like you just got to do it. You got to just prepare like all of your knowledge, everything you know about marketing, your audiences, and just throw ads at it and just see if it works. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about like, something like Facebook ads, right? I know a lot of people have problems with Facebook ads recently, but the most beautiful thing about Facebook ads is all the data across the entire funnel. So I think the most experienced folks, like they have a full understanding of the entire funnel. They have that gut feeling that's based on logic and based on experience of like, let's assume every product is going to be a runaway success, obviously, but let's de-risk as well. Let's not order 5,000 units, maybe start at 100 units for now, and they're going to start seeing their top of the funnel stats, and that's already going to show them like how like 1 to 3 days of ads sometimes is going to tell you if it's going to be a massive winner or a total dud, right? So that's just going to be my advice. Obviously, learn as much as possible, get as much experience as possible, but just don't be afraid to just like feel confident about something as long as it makes sense and just start running ads at it. Now, obviously, if you don't have your supply chain prepared, if you're still using AliExpress, then you should probably not like just start crushing your marketing right away. But then you'd like, find an agent, find someone like us, and you slow down for a week until you build your supply chain.
And as you're describing these challenges of scaling, one thing that I would like to, I guess, get more clarity on is it primarily around scaling from a 5-figure to a 6-figure, 6-figure to 7-figure? I imagine that you go from 7 to 8, you go from 8 to 9, and you'll have to forgive me. I don't know what is the limit, but in the different tiers or the different milestones or whatever is the most equitable term to call it, what challenges change from like 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9?
I think getting to like 6 figures per year, low to mid 6 figures, I think that's I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's relatively straightforward as long as you kind of are diligent about learning what you're doing and kind of doing the right things, right? And honestly, if you're like kind of low 6 figures, like that's at a point where you're not necessarily, it's not so important to think about your operations, not just your supply chain even. Like I've seen plenty of folks like scale to like 6 figures just by themselves and maybe like one VA, or I've seen folks literally just answering customer service tickets by themselves, like literally one person scaling to 6 figures, right? Now beyond that, that's when you need to think about it as a real business. I mean, this is no longer just something that you're a fun hobby or kind of like get quick rich kind of scheme, right? Once you get to that point, you have to think about your operations, right? And I think this is kind of where a lot of folks struggle. Not necessarily a fault to their own, right? Because you think about it, like a lot of folks get into dropshipping without necessarily like a deep background in business experience, most likely like no supply chain experience, right? They haven't had experience like hiring people, scaling up a team, managing a team, and definitely not experience like actually managing a supply chain, right? So this is where I see a lot of folks getting a little bit stuck, right? They start to try to juggle like the marketing side and trying to like handle customer service, or maybe they have some VAs, but still, like they become too stretched, and there is no structure, there's no organization for actually scaling up beyond that level. So this is where actually like roughly at that point is where you already want to start thinking about building up a team, even if it's kind of like a team of VAs, like you want to build up a solid team, a solid structure, a solid process with your SOPs and everything like that. And on the supply chain, this is where you're definitely going to outgrow something like AliExpress or a small agent, because, a legit, like a 7-figure business, 8-figure business, you need a real supply chain. You need a real business. I will tell you, it is a pipe dream to imagine that you're going to be like one guy paying like one VA and have a 7-figure business, and you get it all to yourself, all the margins for yourself. That is a pipe dream. So you really need to invest in your infrastructure, and all of our biggest clients, they have, sometimes massive teams. I mean, like, like offices, like teams of VAs, like, partners, media buyers, and obviously, like, one of the things is that like, I definitely suggest that people who are kind of on that threshold level is don't worry too much about the cost. You obviously have to be aware of the cost, but that's what's going to hold you back, right? If you want to, if you are afraid to hire good people, if you're afraid to kind of invest in your infrastructure, then that's your limit, right? There's only so much you can do. You want to be careful about it. You don't want to scale too fast, but you need to scale your back end as well. You need to scale your operation. You need to scale your people. And you definitely need to scale your supply chain. So I think that is the biggest thing that's holding people back, of course, after they get the marketing right.
One thing that stuck out to me in that is, as you're describing someone in the 6-figure range, that for them, it's time to think about legitimizing their business. I would have thought much sooner than that. Like if I had even got into like a 5-figure range or even 4-figure, like a couple of $1,000s over the course of the year, I think, man, I made that money. I'm legit now. So I don't know if there's like a point where going professional in a person's mind might be too early on in the game. Like they start to like, I don't know, their ego gets ahead of them or something like that. But have you, would you, so when they're earning 6 figures, what's been the mindset that these people have when they're coming to you, and what adjustments do they need to make at that point?
I mean, I think that it obviously depends on the business. It depends on your margins as well, right? Because if you make like 100K over a year, your margins are very low, like 10%, then you're not actually making that much on that, like actual gross revenue, right? The way that I think about like how they want to scale up is you really want to think about what your core competencies are, right? And most likely it's going to be marketing. Most likely it's going to be that. And then you like as it gets ready to scale, and actually the trigger for when you think about scaling up everything else is actually not the top line revenue number, right? It's all about, well, you got to be aware of your actual margins, right? Like I've seen plenty of folks like do like high 6 figures and not make that much money from it because like it's just not a high margin business they're actually running, right? I've seen other folks where they own like it's on track for 5 figures, but the ROAS is amazing and this is such a scalable product, and that's when they actually start investing and building out a team, right? So I think the most important thing to think about, like as you kind of like start seeing that breakout success, is you want to first confirm it's a breakout success. Because it is also very easy to just look at your top line numbers, not really think about like how all the costs add up, not really thinking about your net margins quite as much, and not really thinking about the fact that like, look, as you pump ads, as you 10 times your ad spend, your ROAS is going to go down. It's always going to go down at that level. Do you actually have the margin to scale up? So I think that a lot of times, and I think this is something that if you watch YouTube videos, whether dropshippers, like they're all talking about the top line numbers, right? And but that's not the most important number. You want to understand what your margins are. You want to understand how it tends to look in terms of like kind of your profitability, right? The more profitable you are, the more room that you have to scale up. And you know, that's the real trigger. I mean, obviously, like if you're on track for 5 figures a year and your margins are really good, but like at the end of the day, your net margin is still not, like margin dollar amount is probably not a right time to scale. But I will say this. I mean, again, this is one of the beautiful things about like something like Facebook ads is that once things start working, and you have a feeling it's scalable, it's so scalable. Like obviously ROAS goes down, but it doesn't go down as fast as people think, as long as it's a scalable product. And I think that I definitely advise folks though, kind of at that level, to be honest with yourself. We've also seen folks who like are super confident, but I think that maybe they weren't that honest with themselves. Like, hey, like my margins aren't that good, but I'm at 6 figures. Maybe if I just build a team, maybe if I just push it hard, maybe my margins will increase. I don't necessarily know if like that math really works out, right? There's other ways to improve your margins. Like, I mean, for example, right? If you're selling a generic product and you brand it, right? And you brand it and you prove it so that you can actually like differentiate yourself from the rest of the market. You can charge a higher price on it because it's a better product. Those are really smart ways to improve your margins. And kind of like that makes the math make sense. However, there's costs associated with that. You want to really commit to a product. So it's kind of the same kind of situation, right? Unless you feel like super good about this product, and it's not feel, by the way, unless you do the math and also feel it's a super scalable product, I definitely suggest that you kind of figure out if this is still the right product. I mean, look, I also think it's totally fine if you say, hey, look, I made some decent money from this, but margins aren't that great. I don't know if I can really scale it up. Just kind of run with it for as long as you can, kind of maybe like slowly scale down, but still make some good money, make it a little cash cow. And then one of the things, by the way, is that like what I always suggest is a lot of times, by the way, like we have folks who maybe get a little bit fortunate, right? Like there is a certain amount of luck, and it's not like gambling, right? But like I said, even the most successful folks, they have maybe like a 50% rate, right? And obviously, newer folks are going to have lower than that, but still, you have some chance of it. And we see it sometimes when they get a little bit lucky and they scale up. And they buy a car or something. Don't do that. Don't do that. Reinvest that into your learning. Like if it doesn't seem like this is going to be something that you're going to build a multi-year brand, save some cash, like move on to the next product, get something that is much more scalable and kind of just like, build from that, and ultimately like, I mean, you can keep doing that, and still keep making money, or you finally find a product or a niche where you can really build a long lasting brand.
Now, talking about the testing of products as well as testing as brands, and I'm going to throw myself into the crucible here because, this is a part of what I figured, which is, so what I learned is test this product. Maybe it's going to work. Maybe it's not. Don't put my heart on the product. However, the brand, on the other hand, I mean, it's not like an excessive passion of mine or anything like that, but it is something that I'm enthusiastic about, which is working remotely. And so my thought process is product doesn't work. Brand still has this elasticity to it where, there's content involved. Maybe there's an affiliate marketing as like a side revenue, which, by the way, I'm also going to ask you about. You've identified, if businesses, you've identified side revenue, but we'll get to that. So what would you say is the ratio of brands being killed because the brand didn't work versus products being killed because the product didn't work?
Well, so I think at the end of the day, the product has to win. If you brand a product no one wants, no one really cares about it anyways, right? I would say that, okay, I'm also gonna kind of answer a little bit of a different question as well. Is that
there's just one thing that I just want to clarify, just to make sure. So when I say that, like, it wouldn't be like a one product branded store. Like the brand isn't around the product. The brand is like a means to explore other product options. So even if the product were to go, there would be other products that would still fill some of the same ideology as the brand. So I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I was actually going to talk about that, so it's a good reminder actually. So I think generally, sometimes people, maybe a lot of people, honestly, to be completely frank, think about branding a little bit in an incorrect way. Branding, like what is branding? It's not just a logo. It's not just a color, right? Branding, like branding is something like, I mean, imagine something like Nike, right? Nike, like just do it, or like find your greatness, like great campaigns, right? I mean, they're not even talking about shoes, like they're not even selling shoes at all. But a true brand that you want to build is something that you find a connection with your audience. So if you can do that, I see a lot of success with that. And just like you said, then the product itself becomes, the product is still important. Your product license is still important, right? But if you have and build that connection with your customers, then you can sell a lot of stuff. So we definitely have clients like that. They built up a brand. Maybe one product didn't work quite as well, but actually, like that one product still works a lot better than if someone else is selling with other brand, anyways. And they sell related products. So once you get to that point, it's definitely like you have a high chance of success. Now, obviously, that kind of branding is a lot harder to do than just putting a logo on something, finding a domain, So, this is kind of where I want to clarify. Whereas I do think that kind of like that more simple branding, that the more simple branding is just a little bit of a one up beyond a generic product, basically, right? Because, okay, then people are going to see this product. Oh, it's your brand. Okay, it's better than this generic version. However, like that's just all they think about. Okay, like it's probably better, but I don't really know this brand. It seems like it's nice, but I don't know if I'm going to purchase from them again, but I like this product, right? So that kind of branding is going to be a little bit more similar in kind of success rates as if you're just selling a generic product. Because these days, like even if you sell a generic product, you're probably not going to be doing something that's really ugly, right? You're still going to have a nice looking store. You probably have a branded store name already, it's just not the product is branded, right? One other thing, I want to say about testing as well, because you kind of mentioned like, okay, maybe think about testing something really quickly and just kind of give it up, if it doesn't work out. One interesting thing I've seen in the industry is that I've just seen so many products that, I mean, like, we don't name products that our clients sell, but like so many of the standard generic products, like you probably see top 10 lists of like, dropshipping products, that like everyone, like a lot of people say, oh, this is saturated, like it doesn't work anymore. And people test it and immediately after a day, like, they just give up on it. Well, we've also seen our clients doing huge, massive numbers with the exact same product and with a different marketing angle. And, maybe they don't necessarily kind of like make a profit, for example, on the first sale. But then, I mean, one really important thing that I want people to take away is that like, part of getting away from this just simple traditional dropshipping mindset is that you want to think about your customer LTV as well, right? You want to think about like repeat purchases. You want to think about like add-on products. You want to think about like, okay, what can you email market to them later? A lot of our biggest clients, they would straightforwardly admit that they don't even make money on the first sale. We have a lot of clients who are like that. They use some kind of crazy funnel system. A lot of people are actually using ClickFunnels these days as well. Upsells, cross sells, like downsells, and then like email marketing afterwards. Like some of our biggest clients are totally happy if they're like even break even on the first sale, right? So this is something that I want people to be aware of, just because like break even on the first sale is not necessarily bad. Now, obviously, like kind of building out the back end requires like more experience, but hey, like you want to be an e-commerce entrepreneur, like, learn that experience, like figure out how to build your back end and actually increase that value after the first sale. And that's where you really start to get really scalable, right? Because if you're so focused on that first sale, like that is exactly what happens when someone like scales up to like 6-7 figures and then it just kind of dies down because they have no back end on that, because it's all just focused on the first sale. And if you do that, then your competition sees your ads, they copy your ad, they copy the same product. And then at the end of the day, Facebook is an auction system. And if you can't like outspend your competition, then you're just not going to win. But having that backend literally allows you to outspend your competition and win those customers.
Yeah, it almost sounds to me like it's out invest the competition in that while I'm spending an X amount on ads by accurately and wisely investing my money in the ideal backend, that means the money that I am spending is going a longer way.
Exactly.
Right. So you mentioned throughout the evolution of being on AliExpress, and I think ads are an extension of this evolution as well. So from my perspective right now, such as it is, I hate to use the word feel in what's supposed to be a data driven industry, but I've done it. That there's two levels of ads. There's the ad that is like, if the AliExpress system were to be personified as a commercial, it would be this. It's this, you get the footage from the AliExpress page, put in some cheery music, and you're off to the races. And I feel like those ads, there's that word again, those ads are an extension of the system, which to me doesn't seem to provide a lot of good long-term value. And then on the other hand, and are ads that are this whole campaign that stick out in people's minds to this day, stuff like Dr. Squatch or Dollar Shave Club. You know, these viral ads that just they surge across the internet, and they leave a lasting impression. Even if somebody doesn't buy the product, there's something about them that sticks. Now, again, I can't. You know, you can't say anything about what your clients are doing specifically, but I'm wondering if you've ever seen like a middle point between these two. It's like what have been like the sharpest, most focused ads that have really helped your businesses scale to the 7-figure range, 8-figure range?
I think the middle ground is definitely the best. So first of all, you can't build a business hoping it's going to go viral. Like, I mean, like that's great, right? But the virality formula is honestly really hard to figure out, right? So like that is not a sustainable way to think about business. So you should never hope for that. You might try, but like, you know, that's not really kind of like a reasonable target. And in terms of just like copying ads, you know, like copying videos, that also doesn't scale. It works though. It definitely does work. And you know, this is kind of like, well, so you think about someone testing on AliExpress, using AliExpress, right? I think it's totally fine. You know, just kind of use those ads for now, use their videos for now. You should edit it though, obviously, like edit out Chinese, you know, kind of put your own captions, put your own spin to it. Because the thing is like, first of all, like if you want to test quickly, you don't want to wait 2 weeks for it to arrive to you first to you know, shoot your own ad, right? You want to invest that time and effort, right? And it's not just the video, it's not just the creative, it's also your copy as well. It's also your targeting as well, right? You know, people do the exact same things, literally same copy, slightly different targeting, you know, hugely different results, or slightly different copy, hugely different results, slightly different angle, hugely different results, right? What I actually suggest is just go ahead and just use those ads. And but as soon as you see success, I mean, similar to kind of starting to build out your supply chain, then you get samples of that product. Then you start shooting your own unique content. But I will honestly say that sometimes like content is also like a little bit overrated in its importance if your product is really good. I've seen clients scale up to like $1 million using a picture ad. Like a picture and, you know, one ad, like literally, you know, they probably got a little bit lucky there, to be fair, you know, but at the end of the day, I think on the marketing side, it's like what works just works. And sometimes you just don't know, right? Like, you know, sometimes crappy looking ads, like, you know, they just work, right? Because maybe they look more authentic, more real, whatever, you know? So to kind of like generally answer that question, it's like, test things. I mean, constantly testing. The best people in the game constantly test things, and do not have any kind of preconceived notions of like what is supposed to be good. Like I would even say, well, once you get more experience, I think that when you first start out, like, you know, obviously listen to the experts, try to emulate what they're doing. But as you kind of like get past that beginner stage, don't have preconceived notions of what you're supposed to do. The more people who do the same thing, the more competition there is. The more that you can actually test things that are completely different than whatever, even if it seems weird, even if it seems like not best practice, you know, once in a while, you're going to hit a huge winner that, you know, it's going to take a long time for your competitors to figure out.
Well, I think that's a fantastic answer. And one thing I just wanted to add at the tail end of that, because I didn't remember it when I said Dollar Shave Club, but I remember it now, which is that thing didn't go viral by accident, by the way. There actually was a lot of work and a lot of money spent getting it into the right hands so that all these different chain reactions would occur all at once. So yeah, like it really was a lot less luck than people think. And it's been a while since I even brought that up, but just wanted to tag that one at the end there. Now we're getting close. We still got some time. But there's certainly like a wealth of stuff that I still wanted to talk about. And one of them is I actually wanted to do a little bit of history, hear a little bit more about the history of the company. So when exactly did it start? And It's amazing to think of, where it is now, compared to where it might have been when it began. But I would really like to know about, like, at the time of its inception, what were you guys doing, and what were you guys identifying was a problem that other people weren't solving?
Yeah. So maybe if you don't mind me, I'll start with a little bit on my background because it's all very, very related.
Sure,
So
sounds good.
yeah, so I started my career in tech. So I grew up in San Francisco. I went to Stanford. I was all about like tech. I used to be a product manager making mobile games, and like the reason I mentioned that is because when I was making mobile games, like they were free to play games, like free to download, and like you get people to pay after the fact, right? This is where it really kind of drilled into me like the importance of customer lifetime value. Like literally every customer or every player you acquire as a free to play game, you lose money, literally, right? And then you try to make it back, to try to get them to buy more things, right? And then I moved on for that. I got my MBA, and then I was a consultant at BCG for a while, and that's where I kind of really got this urge to start my own company. And the first company that I started was Pillar Learning. The product was Cody. It was like a smart toy device for kids, and or actually just last December, we're actually on Shark Tank. We're actually walked with a deal, so that was exciting. However, before we went on Shark Tank, there was kind of a period where, okay, like it wasn't like it was successful enough to keep running and kind of sell to customers, but it wasn't really kind of making me a lot of money. And I was spending my wife's credit cards and things. So I was like, okay, I really need to do something to make some money. And I was like, hey, this is where I learned about dropshipping. And I was like, oh, wow, this is so much. So the product I made, it was fully custom produced. Like I was at the factories, like it was like $500,000 of investment. And I was like, drop shipping, this is much easier than what I'm doing. Like these 17-year-old kids like making $1 million apparently, on YouTube. So that's how I actually started a couple of drop shipping stores. That was probably back in 2018 or so. And I was like, wow, like I'm actually making money here, like a couple $1,000s per day. That was actually when I realized two things. One is that I didn't really like the creative side of marketing that much. And I think you kind of have to like enjoy at least like kind of making ads. So I was like, okay, maybe this is not perfect for me. And the other thing I realized was like, wow, the supply chain is broken. Like there's no supply chain at all, right? Like AliExpress is not a supply chain. Like what is this? Because of my past experience, I was like, okay, so many people are making money. And then I was also in a lot of Facebook groups, and I just hear about people just getting just having their entire supply chain implode, right when they scale, which is obviously when you want things to be the smoothest, right? So this is where it kind of hurt me because these guys were in my community and friends. Like, wow, these guys are like hardworking people, and they finally start to scale, and then bam, like their supply chain breaks down. PayPal like holds their funds. Facebook shuts them down. So this is where I was kind of like, hey, look, I think I want to level up this industry. It deserves to be leveled up because I see, I'm actually very good friends with a couple of like big drop shippers, Jordan Welsh, Gabriel St. Germain, for example. And like I saw that, hey, people are doing like really advanced things, and like the whole front end was maturing, but the back end was not keeping up. And that's where I saw the opportunity, especially given my background in production and supply chain, to then start EcommOps. That was like something, it was around 2019 or so, so roughly 2 years ago. And when I first started, by the way, like I didn't have a website. I was in Prague on vacation. I had this idea, and I like wrote a PDF in like 2 hours, and I started like just DMing people in Facebook groups, like kind of talking about my value proposition, which was, basically it's exactly what I told you. Like I want to build your supply chain for you, and like I got the first client in like 4 hours, and I was like, hey, this potentially has some legs, right? Because to me, when you want to build a sustainable business, it's not about how much money that you hope to make from it, right? It's about the value you can actually bring to others, and the money comes naturally. If you think about the money first, that's exactly, you get to the point where, okay, maybe it's actually not that valuable, maybe it's kind of artificial, but when you can actually figure out what that product market fit is or service market fit, what do people actually desperately need? And that's where if you meet that demand, and that's like the money just comes naturally as part of serving that demand. So that's where EcommOps grew, and it just grew rapidly through the last 2 years. Last year, we did over 1 million units in sales, like estimated probably our clients made like, 50 million revenue on that or something like that. 50 million or more. This year, we're probably on track for like, 3 million units this year, or, hopefully more. Right. So yeah, so that's like, I think that we got to this point because the value, the mission was clear and it was necessary from the very start. And, like all of this was started with a PDF, and then I started a YouTube channel and a Facebook group. We might have spent like a couple $100 worth of Facebook ads just to test it, but are like, oh, like clients are coming to us anyways. We don't need it. I mean, it just kind of really grew organically, word of mouth. And yeah, this is an example. And I'm very like happy that we're here, honestly, because the way I think about like where the e-commerce brand positions itself is more of, like I said, we want to level up the whole industry. And actually, that's part of the reason why I have that YouTube channel, right? I mean, it's all free content, like I don't ask anything other than just check us out, right? I'm super excited to be part of this because I think that dropshippers, e-commerce entrepreneurs, they deserve it. They deserve to at least have an option to feel that, okay, if we work with EcommOps, you can feel confident that they're not going to bullshit us. They're going to be transparent. They're going to work with us if they're there. And, I'm also happy for newer folks who might not be able to work with us yet, providing them as much free content and knowledge as possible so that, well, one, to level the whole industry, and hopefully eventually, even years from now, they can work with us and we build something great together.
So there's two things that I find remarkable about that. One is how evident the issue was, to the point where people are saying that their websites have exploded, and not in a good way, where their supply chains have fallen out from under them, and now they're in serious dire straits. They got to cancel ads and they're probably losing money. So things were pretty. There was not as like emergencies. No one was dying, but there was an urgency to it. So that's the first thing I find remarkable. The second thing I find remarkable is the sincerity of your story, and how the rules of what make it a success are the same rules that I've noticed are true about something as intimate like a previous guest, Kia James or Paris Northcutt, who were making skincare and candles respectively. They identify a problem, they found a solution, and through a mixture of reaching out to others, but also others reaching out to them, they found that the success that they're finding, the success that you're finding, is based on your ability to serve others. And if there's any takeaway that really sticks out in my mind, it's that. And I'm certainly hoping that the audience would do the same.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and we also kind of see that pattern with some of our clients as well. I mean, not necessarily every client. Like, you don't need to necessarily like put such a strong focus on your customer to see success. It's definitely not a requirement. However, definitely, like, we see a lot of very successful clients. They're successful because they care about their customers. They pick up the phone and talk to their customers and ask about what they like about the product, how they can improve. And what's the ROI on that? It's negative ROI, right? But that's how they continue to figure out how to better serve that type of customer. And that's what becomes the most important. I mean, look, at the end of the day, clients are people, customers are people. I think this is one of the things I think that is important to kind of break through as well for some, is that, like, remember that it's people. Like, it's not just purchases, it's not just add to carts, like, there's people on the other side. And even if you don't necessarily kind of like bend over backwards to kind of try to talk to them, like, the more that you remember they're actually people, like, that actually, like, humanizing that whole process, that funnel, helps your marketing as well, because it allows you or forces you to think about a way that, okay, these are not just numbers, these are people. Like, how do I think about, like, who the audience is? How do I put myself in their own shoes? What do they actually need? And that's going to help your marketing a ton as well.
This was a particular one that I'm curious about because there is, competition, and so much so that I've interviewed, a couple of other companies in the same boat as you. I haven't talked to anybody who officially works for Amazon, just people who work, with Amazon, or in some cases in spite of Amazon. And I'm wondering how much of the competition between, the Goliaths like that, other companies in the e-commerce space, even other ones, in China who are doing their own fulfillment thing, how much does that competition have an impact on you? And does the squeeze come from them, or do you feel like you're more like you're carving out your own unique part of the industry that's uniquely your objective?
Yeah, so we'll talk about Amazon first because that also applies to a lot of store owners who are worried about like marketing against Amazon, right? So the thing about Amazon these days is that like 5, 10 years ago, if you wanted to buy stuff, go to Amazon, and like you're gonna trust it's gonna be good stuff, right? Um, More recently, though, I think there has been decreased trust in Amazon products. It's I wouldn't be exaggerating to say that it's a lot of the problems from Chinese sellers, right? Chinese sellers, they start selling a ton of generic products through like Amazon FBA. They have much lower margin expectations, so they can just like undercut everyone. And now Amazon's becoming a place where okay, you get 2 day shipping via Prime, that's fine, but like unless you're buying like a PlayStation, like okay, like I don't really. This is a cool product, some random brand. I don't know if I can trust them, but Shopify allowed people to build nice looking brands, like sometimes in hours if you know what you're doing, right? So now you have situations where like you have the exact same product, but you have a brand on it. And there's marketing on it. You can sell it for some of our clients sell it like for double the price of Amazon. And it still works, even though people are definitely searching for stuff on Amazon as well. And you know why it's worked? Because people are starting to get a little bit jaded with kind of unbranded goods on Amazon, brands they don't heard of, brands that don't have a website. Like there is kind of a feeling that okay, this brand doesn't have a website. It's like, is it really legitimate? It was probably from China, anyways, right? So this is where kind of like I think for store owners, don't worry about Amazon. Like, people are always worried about Amazon. People are, like don't ever price compete with Amazon on the same product. You're never going to win. You're literally never going to win. Do better marketing, do better branding them, show the customer there's something better about your product, even though maybe it's the same thing, right? So that's Amazon. That's why I don't think it's a competition in what we're doing and what kind of these store owners are doing. In terms of my competition, there is a ton. Let me tell you. I mean, it is a ridiculously crowded um, industry, right? Because okay, so last couple of years, a lot of AliExpress sellers they smartened up and realized, hey, there's this thing called drop shipping, right? Well, it's much easier to be a dropshipping agent than to okay like run kind of like an Amazon like store and just hope that orders come in. So there's been a huge influx of folks who were just AliExpress sellers who are now like private dropshipping agents. So there is a lot of people like trying to compete for the same client base. So I will tell you, it's one of the most competitive industries that I've ever been in. But similar to how a store owner should think about marketing as well in a supposedly saturated market, right? You do better. You do better than everyone else, and you articulate your value as well. And this is where we actually do better, right? Because the average other agent is like a guy or like like a couple of people like in like an apartment or something. I've had the fortunate I've been fortunate that I've actually had a business training, so I actually like know how to scale up a business, make sure that we can actually support increasing capacity that supports our clients, right? What normally happens with most other suppliers is that okay, Q4 happened, like there are literally physical constraints to fulfillment, right? Like one fulfillment worker, like depending on what product it is, like a couple hundred, orders per day, like 1,000, you're gonna like just like crush them, like and like like just working all night, and that's it, right? And what happens if a couple of your clients all scale up? That's exactly what happens when they scale up. They think that now they're working with a private agent, everything's gonna be better. You don't realize that private agent, which is an AliExpress seller, or maybe still an AliExpress seller, to be honest, they might still have an AliExpress store on the side as well. So yeah, it is a hugely competitive industry, and I think it kind of mirrors just dropshipping e-commerce in general. Like, look, I'm not gonna lie, dropshipping and e-commerce is hugely competitive. I mean, such low barrier of entry. I mean, just like how it's so easy to be a dropshipping agent, it's so easy to start like a Shopify store and start marketing it. But people still win, and people win by doing something different. People win by finding the right angle, building up their back end, caring about their customers, building a brand and articulating that brand. So yeah, so even with all the competition, we've been scaling this far and mostly organically. And I think that's also, kind of a good good sign, for, kind of a good lesson for even dropshippers as well, store owners as well, is that, just don't worry about saturation as much. There's still a lot of opportunity, but try to do something different, try to do something better.
Well, I think that's a fantastic answer as well, and it reminds me, just like every time I get an email from AliExpress about like a new product offer or something like that, I don't know, I don't respond to it the same way I do when I get like an offer from a branded store or something like that. I'm like, you guys, it takes forever to get things. Why are you marketing to me? It's just, I don't know. It's very uncanny valley when I get emails from AliExpress, because they are, it's a marketplace. It's an online store, and yet I'm just so far removed from treating it like that. But on the other hand, I also appreciate, whenever I see a product being marketed to me now, and I like these arthritis gloves that I wear every opportunity I get.
We've done a lot of those, by the way.
Yeah. Well, being past the veil, I see how much they're being marketed for, and then I see how much they are on AliExpress. And I'm like, I'm going to go on AliExpress. I'm going to buy a bunch of them at the same price. So, but that's the luxury of knowing that, and not everybody has that. I just have one other like nugget question for you, and then we'll wrap this up. So this is from one of your Facebook posts, and you have to forgive me if like, it maybe it was posted and you didn't have a chance to look at that. So if that's the case, sorry. But it's funny because we just mentioned long shipping times, and you guys talk about some of the things that sellers can do to, I guess, like soften the blow of these long shipping times. Is that to your recollection? Did you want to touch on that for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't remember the exact post. I talked a lot about that before. So you might need to remind me kind of a little bit more detail of the post, or, what did I actually say?
Oh, okay. Unfortunately, I don't have the Facebook post up. So off the top of my head, it's essentially like what's advice to give to people who have to deal with long loading times as sellers, and how they can, ease the burden for the customers.
Last year, COVID happened. It was last year, right? It seemed like forever. Yeah. So last year was COVID.
It's the longest 14 days of my life.
Last year was COVID, and COVID was probably the worst thing to ever happen. Well, it's like a tragedy, like in itself, not just business, but in the industry, in terms of logistics from China, it's drop shipping. It's the worst thing that has happened. Probably the worst thing that will ever happen. In the near foreseeable future. There were periods afterwards where something that would normally take 5 to 8 days going to the US sometimes got delayed up to 30 days. Sometimes even more. Right, and that was brutal. Right, so that is a perfect example of just extremely long shipping times, and a lot of drop shippers and even a lot of suppliers actually just completely got out of the game. Like, didn't even fulfill for their clients, or like their customers, and a lot of stores honestly just didn't fulfill their orders. That's actually why like there were a lot of Facebook bans like the end of last year, because like a lot of like it seemed like scams basically, right? What we always told our clients during that time was, look, well, first of all, it's COVID, so like there's some understanding as well, right? But customers don't get pissed just because something happens, right? Some do, but like generally speaking, like they get pissed if they feel lied to. They get pissed if they don't understand what's going on, right? Even during normal times, sometimes there's delays, and especially during those COVID delays. What I always told my clients is communicate with them. We know, it's not going to arrive in 8 days anymore. All right. Don't tell them it's going to arrive in 8 days, right? Put it up front that because of COVID, because of these delays, there can be some extreme delays. We apologize. And even for the cases where, okay, like before we knew there were going to be delays, there were clients already advertising 5 to 8 day shipping. And then the delays started happening. Email your customers, explain to them the situation, right? And the clients who did that, like it was pleasant. It was a huge pleasant surprise to see the actual effect. There's obviously some that want refunds, but not that high of a rate. I wouldn't say it would be like, 50%, maybe like 5% want refunds, but still like most of the customers, they were completely understanding. They got it and they appreciate the store owner, the VA reaching out to them. So that's really how you deal with it. If there's unexpected delays. Now, obviously, like the other thing is that you do want as fast shipping as possible. So like definitely do work with an agent and supplier that offers you fast enough and efficient shipping lines as well. And then just put it up, on your site, what the expected shipping times are. A lot of folks out there, especially when trying to compare with Amazon Prime, like, oh, I don't have 2 day shipping. Like, no one's gonna buy from my store if I say like 5 to 10 day shipping. Like, that is absolutely not true. I mean, like, people have made like 8 figures, like, promising 8 to 10 shipping, 8 to 10 day shipping. So definitely like as long as you put it up front. Now, obviously, look, if they want 2 day shipping, then they're not going to buy from you anyways. But like, if you promise that, like they're going to be pissed off and report you to Facebook anyway. So that's not a way. But yeah, I think that this is kind of one of the great things about like why China fulfillment works is you obviously have to have the right product, right? Obviously, if you're selling a product that they know they could just buy from Amazon, like, that's not going to work, right? Like, yeah, whatever like common product that you just buy from Amazon anyway, like don't sell that stuff, right? Don't sell like Gillette like razors, for example. But there are so many products in this world where like people don't even know it exists, and that's kind of one of the great things about running Facebook ads, right? Because it's not intent based. It's like demand based, right? Like they see an ad and they just want it. They really want it. They might kind of shop around, but but Amazon has this weird brand. These guys have like kind of like a nice brand at least. I trust these guys more. 5 to 10 days, whatever. I don't need it right away, right? It's not like toilet paper or something, right? So yeah, I think that long shipping, as long as it's not like 30 days, it's totally manageable. And like I said, even when there are unexpected delays, production delays, just manage your customers, and enough of them will be understanding that you're not going to lose money, right? Like, I mean, you always got to kind of consider your margins, right? Like maybe if you get like 20% refunds, then you start to like lose money, right? But I guarantee you, like if you do the right things and communicate, even in unexpected delays, you're not going to get 20% refunds.
Terrific. Well, I think that that really helps clear up an issue that I know I've had, but I'm certain a lot of my audience will probably have that issue as well. So that is going to be it. And Dayu, this has just been terrific. I've really learned a lot from you today. So I truly appreciate your time.
I appreciate it.
Our final question is it's actually in 2 parts. One, if there's any last bits of wisdom that you like sharing, Chinese proverb, something along those lines, more than welcome to share it. And then let the audience know how they can find out more of what you're up to and get in touch even.
Yeah, no Chinese proverb. I've never been good at those. One thing I will say, I was kind of reminded of this when I was talking by my own experience as well, is that like, I mean, I failed so many times in my entire career. It's been such an up and down. Like nothing is ever a straight line, right? And like I failed so many times, like different stores. Like for a while, actually, like my Cody product was like I was kind of like worried about it being a failure. They were on Shark Tank, everything's better, obviously. You're gonna fail a lot, especially if you're starting out. You're gonna fail in product testing, like stuff is just not going to work. But in my experience is that every single failure is just an experience to just learn from your mistakes. Definitely learn from your mistakes. Don't just like move on and don't learn from it. But where I am today is just based really just on the foundation of all these failures and just learning from those and just really adjusting for the better. And I think that lesson applies to any kind of business. And I think it particularly applies to something like dropshipping or e-commerce, right? Because you're going to have a potentially high and fast failure rate, and you want to do that, right? You want more chances at that and you want to improve every single time. So, that's kind of like one thing that I definitely want people to take away. And yeah, I think that I think that, like I said before, we really specialize in helping people scale up. And the other thing that's kind of related to that as well is that don't worry about failure, but also like don't aim too low either, right? Don't like think, oh, I have a mid 6-figure store, I'm pretty happy, I'm gonna stay cushy. Like you can do so much more. If you stay steady, like most likely than not, you're going to eventually fail with that store anyways, so like always push it to the next level, figure out how you improve your operations, improve your supply chain. And then, I guess that's to us, we specialize in that. We specialize in the folks to get you to the next level. We're not going to be perfect for testing, use AliExpress for that. But once you are ready to scale to that next level and really work with experts, work with a partner in your supply chain, that's where you come find us. So we're EcommOps. We have a website, ecommops.com. One really great way to communicate with us, though, is that we do have a Facebook group, just EcommOps Facebook group. That's where we have a community. I'm always in there. We share a ton of knowledge. If you're new, you're welcome as well, right? If you're experienced, come and chat with us, and we'll just start a conversation, right? I think that in the spirit of this not being a transactional service, like, we love to talk to you. We love to talk to you about your issues. We love to talk to you if you're a good fit, we're a good fit. And if we're not, that's totally fine. We're fine with talking to you anyway. So yeah, so go to our website, go to our group. We do also have a YouTube channel, so check us out. It's all called EcommOps, by the way, EcommOps, so just look out for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And
Cool.
And finally, to my audience as well, thank you all for listening. It is a great honor and privilege to be able to collect this information and share it with all of you. And I look forward not only to the next time I get to speak to you, Dayu, down the line, but what information I'll be lucky to collect in a matter of, a couple of days from now. I'm not going into the weekend. I don't do recordings. Got to rest the voice. All right, everybody, take care, and we will check in soon.
For this product, pretty much, and explain how we're gonna target emergence.
Hey, this is Joseph from Ecomonics. Just wanted to thank you for being here and for giving this content your time and attention. I hope you learned something. I can say with certainty, I have learned something with every episode that I have done, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. There's a couple of things you can do to help us out. If you want to check out the audio content, we are available on all major podcast platform distributors. And while you're there, give us a 5-star review. It helps a lot. And while you're here on YouTube, there's a lot of things you can do to help out as well. It's not going to take very long. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button for this episode, and hit the notification bell so when we have new content for you, it's going to be at your doorstep ASAP. Lastly, this podcast is created by Debutify, the best Shopify template available. It is 100% free for you to start, and it can change your life. It can make you so much more free than you are right now. So if this episode wasn't enough to convince you, I think a few more might do the trick. So have at it.